It's time for Baby and Toddler Instructions with host Blythe Lipman. Blythe is a nationally renowned infant and toddler expert who has over 30 years' experience helping moms and dads regain their sanity, teaching them how to survive, and giving them the confidence they need to be the best parents ever. From sleeping to crying to potty training to choosing a preschool and so much more. If you're a parent, Baby and Toddler Instructions is the show you've been looking for. Now here's your host, Blythe Lipman.
Well, good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever in the world you might be. Thanks so much for tuning in to Baby and Toddler Instructions this morning. If you're a first-time listener, I host my radio show every Wednesday morning, 11 o'clock Eastern, right here on TogiNet.com. And please listen to all their other great shows. Also, all the shows are Moby-friendly. You can go to my website, mybestparentingadvice.com. You can come to the TogiNet site. You can go to iTunes, and you can listen to the shows a lot of ways. And you know what? It's fun if you're taking your kids for a walk and they're sleeping. If they're not sleeping, don't listen to the show. You should be talking to them. But anyway, I'm very excited about today's show because it's the first week in April, and that means Connie Gruning from Peanut Butter and Wine, WHINE.com. And she's telling us, going to tell us what's hot and what's not. And I have her site up in front of me with the computer. If you're near a computer, pull it up. She's got the greatest giveaways. You have to enter the contest. She doesn't just give them free. So Connie will be with us in just a second. And then the rest of the show, I have Erica Komisar. She wrote a terrific book called Being There, Why Prioritizing Motherhood in the First 3 Years Matters. And it sure does. There were a couple of recalls this week. Infant caps by sock and accessory brands. The button on the top of the infant cap can detach, and you know that can go right in the mouth. Also, Jura Toys recalled toy trolleys that can tip backwards. Well, that's very unsafe. Also, Fred Meyer, I think that's the grocery store, recalled children's hooded sweatshirts and girls' bomber jackets. The zipper pull can detach from the sweatshirt and in the mouth again. Anyway, if you go to my website, mybestparentingadvice.com, look at the recall page. You will see everything, the numbers, the websites. They'll either give you your money back, give you something to repair. But check out my website anyway, because I just updated it. Woohoo! Much easier, different. All my articles, everything's on there. Anyway, that's mybestparentingadvice.com. So that's it, because I want you to hear what Connie has this month. Connie, welcome to the show. I'm so excited when you come on the show every month. Quickly, tell everybody who you are.
Connie Gruning. I'm a babysitting grandma who blogs every day. I have a site, Peanut Butter and Wine, and I tell you what great products there are, especially for families. And right now, I'm really excited because Easter is coming, and I like alternatives that are not just not just candy. I don't want you to get hyped up on candy. I want little things. And Jay at Play has probably the greatest little toys. A couple of years ago, they had these flip-a-zoos, which are huge stuffed animals that turn inside out and turn into a different animal. Well, now they have little ones that are in blind bags, which is amazing because kids, I don't know what it is about these YouTube videos, but if you have a kid or you have a grandkid, you have no doubt watched these videos on YouTube where these kids do reviews and they open these blind bags, and adults do. And blind bags are basically a Mylar bag, and it has a little toy inside. And they're usually little tiny things, and the kids just go nuts over these things. So the first thing that they have are these little hard plastic. They're about 2 inches long, and they're an animal. And then there's a rubbery, it's like a rubber. It folds over the backside and becomes a whole different animal. So you'll have a purple hippopotamus that becomes a green alligator. It is so cute.
These are so cute. Connie, what's the age on this, on the little ones?
Now, 3 and up, although Alice and I, we pulled at everything, there was nothing that came off. So, but I still think this one is the little Mylar grab bag. Those are definitely 3 and up because they would be swallowable, I believe. But I don't think anything would come off, but the whole thing might still go in the mouth.
Okay. I do have to tell you, I got Alex, my grandson, one of the bigger ones, and he loved it. And I could remember, he was starting to talk. He was going more and more because he didn't have the coordination to flip it over and make it the other animal. And these are so cute. I can't wait to get him a little one next year.
Yes. And they also have one that's a little over 5 inches, and it's made out of a real soft, cuddly, like velour almost. And it also turns into a little animal. So we had a little blue dolphin that turned into a walrus, which I called it a lion. Alice immediately said, no, it is not.
Yes, I've done that.
Yeah. So basically ask the kid what it is, and they will tell you. Another thing that I'm really totally psyched about is these Zand Amsterdam. Now, these are skirts. If you look, I have all these things for Easter on the side, on my sidebar, and it tells you some of my Easter picks for this year. And this is skirts. And normally I don't get real excited over clothing because, I'm losing weight, Alice is growing. Really, skirts are going to be something, but this is cool as heck. It's got snaps all the way around your waistband. So a skirt, the one that I ordered goes from 8 to 18, and it will grow or decrease with you, and it's also reversible. It has a zipper that you can unzip it, turn it to the other side, so you're basically getting 4 different skirts out of one because both sides of the belt or the waistband are a different color. So I have a solid or I have a black with butterflies and dragonflies. And I have that's just the belt. And then the skirt itself, I have a black and white and turquoise or a peach color with flowers on it.
So you can wear this out to dinner, and when you eat too much, you can go in the restroom and fix it. Make it bigger when you've eaten too much. Love it. This is great. I'm
Exactly. And let's say you want to, all of a sudden you want to be a little more daring. You move the snaps a little bit tighter, go take the skirt up a little bit shorter. You want to make it a little bit longer, make the snaps a little bit further apart and pull it down and snap it. Then it has a little handbag, a little purse that's big enough for my little card wallet and some lip gloss. It actually fits a lot of stuff. I can put my little mini camera in there if I wanted to. This skirt is the coolest thing, and they have them in kid sizes. So Alice is going to be able to wear this skirt until she's about 12 years old because of the snap system. It is brilliant. It's so cool. You have to look at that. It is.
How do people come up with this? Inside out animals and skirts that if you're fat or thin, you can fix them. This is great.
It really is. Okay, so then I have one more, and that is, it's called Pet Cube. Now, this is the Pet Cube that has Pet Cube Play. And it has a little camera in it. It's a little tiny box. It has a camera, and when you're away, especially if you have cats, it sets out a little red light, and you can play with your animal while you're away and talk to your animal through the camera. You can set it on auto motion and let it go by itself so your pets are entertained. And when we did this with Gracie, who is a 100-pound golden lab, there's one point where I was taping, because you can also videotape from the Pet Cube. You can take still shots. You can take videos. There's one shot. I'm talking to her from my daughter's house, playing with the little red light, and she looks at me. I swear she's like a teenager, like, yeah, right. Thanks, Mom. I don't want to play with the dot right now. It's
What is she? That's great, because I always want to know what my dogs are doing when I'm not home.
Exactly.
Pulling the toilet paper from the bathroom across the room.
Then you will know who it is. You'll know which one did it. Because you can,
yes.
and it is very cool. Okay, so I have another one, and this is Surprisimals, another alternative to candy in the Easter basket. And these are little, and they're little stuffed animals with great big eyes. And the eyes, we pulled at everything. I would still not do it under 3 because of the eyes, because, on that off chance, one of them really could get an eye off. But Alice and I pulled and tugged and everything, trying to get the eyes off or anything. These are instead of a Mylar bag, these come in a little round ball. They have tons of little animals in there. We never did get a double, so they have, like all the other bags, all the other blind bags, there are commons, rares, and ultra rares. So it's another way to get you to collect stuff, which, moms are going, oh, no, I don't want to collect more stuff, but the kids have fun. And one more thing for little kids that for Easter baskets, and that is Super Wings. And if you have little ones and you listen to or watch Sprout TV, you already know about Super Wings. This is a hero's. They are little airplanes, but these guys transform into robots. So you have a policeman, you have Jet, who is the main character. He turns into a robot or an airplane, and you have the little pink helicopter, and it's really a great show for little kids, for the little ones. They love Super Wings. So getting to have the Super Wings and the little animals is very, very cute.
I'll have to see if Alex watches that. He is just a couch potato. His new thing is Moana, and he gets up and dances, and that's the new one. It was Cars like 40,000 times. But you know what? It's all good. Colors, music, sizes, exactly. And here comes the tune, so we have to Super Wing out of here. I'll talk to you in May. Thank you, Connie.
Have a great April. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.
We'll be right back with more Help My Baby Came Without Instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these.
Would you like to know how to bring more ease to all the decisions you need to make in life? Knowing your core values is the first step in Joyce's free live masterclass. You'll discover your top 5 core values in as little as 45 minutes. Join her now at freegiftfromjoyce.com.
Reaching out from the heartland of the United States with quality programming, this is TogiNet Radio.
It's words you never heard.
Did you ever wonder how reindeer survive the severe cold? Well, they snuzzle around for some moss to eat. Moss contains a special chemical that helps keep their body fluids warm. And they're going to have to keep warm if they're going to pull Santa's sleigh every year. Santa's sleigh was originally called a winged doodle. Both male and female reindeer grow antlers, but male reindeer drop their antlers at the beginning of winter. I can't help but wonder why Santa's reindeer from Rudolph to Blitzen had male names. Since they had antlers, they would have had to be female. We women should have known only females would be able to drag a hefty man outfitted in a red velvet suit, originally called a hoopin' daddy, all around the world in one night and not get lost.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. The hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions. I am here, and I'm going to introduce you to my wonderful guest in just a few seconds. Her name is Erica Komisar. She has a terrific book called Being There, Why Prioritizing Motherhood in the First 3 Years Matters. She is a clinical social worker, psychoanalyst, and parent guidance expert who has been in private practice in New York City for the last 27 years. She graduated from Georgetown and Columbia and the New York Freudian Society. She is a psychological consultant bringing parenting and work-life workshops to clinics, schools, corporations, and child care settings. And she lives in New York City with her husband, optometrist and social entrepreneur, Dr. Jordan Katzalow, and their 3 teenage children. Wow, 3 teenagers in New York. Fun for them. Good morning. Thank you for being on the show. I love your book.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And I have to figure this out because I say this. A lot of times I don't like folding pages down, and I'm going to have to figure out somehow to take a picture and show you how many bookmarks I have in this book because it's great. There's so many questions, that parents ask all the time, this balance and guilt and, what does being there really mean? If you're standing there, are you there? Well, you know what? We're going to talk all about that. But let's start from the beginning. Why did you write the book, and what's the biggest message you want to talk about?
So I wrote the book because I felt that society had devalued mothering to the extent that I felt like we were failing our children. As a clinician, I was seeing an increase in really an epidemic level of emotionally troubled children with serious symptoms, and I was connecting those symptoms in my practice to a lack of a mother's presence or lack of a primary caregiver's presence. And then I started to look at the research, and over the past 13 years really just dove into the neuroscience and attachment research, and of course based on my own clinical observations just really felt that there was strong evidence to prove that a mother's presence is not only emotionally important but also biologically important for children in the first 3 years.
I'm looking at the first page, and I'll tell you, I've said this so many times. Your children need your presence, ENCE, more than your presence. And I have used this on my show so many times because it's true. Kids know when you're not there. You can be standing there, but you're not really there. So first, in the beginning of your book, you talk about you can be a perfect mother. What's that mean?
Well, the beginning of the book talks about all of the myths and debunking the myths. And, nobody's perfect. There are no perfect mothers. There are no perfect people. There are no perfect babies. And so the book doesn't really aspire to helping mothers to be perfect. It actually helps mothers to feel that they can be, in Winnicott's words, good enough, that they can do what's best for their children to give them the greatest chance to be emotionally well and mentally healthy.
I'm glad you said that about being perfect because you're right. We're perfect the way we are, and everybody's different, and every child is different, and what may work for one person may not work for another. And the family situations are different if you work full-time or you don't. Yeah. But, there's this other myth that you talk about in the book that in order to be a great mother, then you have to neglect yourself and your own needs. And, boy, that's a biggie.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're not talking about it's not a zero-sum game with you having to choose between your children's needs or your own. But when you do have children and care for them in the first 3 years, they do need a great deal. There is a certain amount of sacrifice that I think as a society we don't really look at as much as we need to, that women go into it without the knowledge that they need to make the choice to have children and then be able to care for them. So I'm hoping that the book will help to educate women so they actually know what it takes, that they have the information to make the choices that they need to make.
That's so true. I think that you should read your book before you have the baby because we don't know. That's why I wrote my books. Help My Baby came without instructions and My Toddler came without instructions because there are instructions and you don't know. And it's so helpful. Your book, I love all the chapters. You know what? It gets right to the meat of everything. Like, I've had this question so many times on page 47. It's myth 12. I'll spoil my baby if I hold her too much. She needs to learn to be independent. And, you know, I want you to talk about that a little bit, because I've had parents say that to me all the time. You know, shouldn't I just leave her in her crib and let her cry? And it's like, nah, you know, they need something. That's why they're crying.
They do. In the first 3 years, mothers do a number of things for babies that's really critical. One thing they do is they help from moment to moment to regulate a baby's emotions. And then eventually, by the age of 3, that baby can do it on their own. But in the beginning, mothers are really what I call the emotional skin for babies. And so, as you say, when a baby cries, they really do need you. They're either frightened or they're hungry or they need comfort. And that comforting from moment to moment is one of the most important functions that a mother serves for a baby. The other one is protecting the baby from stress, but what we call buffering the baby from stress. And when we don't buffer our children from stress in those first 3 years to the best of our ability, then we see symptoms of stress. We all know that stress isn't good for our bodies. And it's not good for babies. And so, yes, mothers provide these functions. So letting a baby cry not only exposes that baby to sometimes intolerable stress, but also doesn't help the baby to regulate their emotions.
You know, I just had a question from a mom with a 6-month-old that she says, if my baby is crying, but I'm in the middle of doing something, am I supposed to drop everything and run every time the baby cries, or is it okay to let them cry a little? I mean, I know each situation is different, but anyway, that's a hard question.
Yeah, it's a good question. So, you know, the idea is that from the very beginning when babies are born, they still need some space. So, you know, very worried and anxious mothers don't leave any space for the baby. So yes, babies can cry a little, and in fact, little increments of frustration are also an important part of the separation process, and they're also an important part of children developing resilience to stress. But it's really the intensity and degree of what we expose our children to. So for that mother, yes, of course, it's okay to let your baby cry with little bits, increments of frustration, and just, you know, monitoring it so you intervene before that baby becomes too fractious, because then you're exposing the baby to a level of stress they're not equipped to handle.
You know what? That's a great answer, because I know, you know, I've taken care of over 1,000 babies and families, and I've always found that the babies that are cranky, the mothers are nervous, and the mothers are not sure, and they're guilty if they don't run right away. And you know what? The babies pick up on it, and yes. You don't even have to do anything. You can just pick up your baby, and if you're having a stressful day, they'll know. They'll be different in your arms. And it's so important to kind of take a breath, but that's not always so easy. What about if you can't be there and you have to have another caretaker? You have to work full time, or you choose to work full time, and somebody else those first 3 years is taking care of the baby. You talk a lot about that in your book, and I love your chapters with your checklists, because you have great questions about caretakers.
Yeah. You know, caretakers, you know, surrogate caretakers, whether it's a grandmother or an aunt or a next-door neighbor or a babysitter or a father. You know, a father is, in fact, a surrogate caregiver for a mother, because fathers and mothers are different. You know, you can have a wonderful surrogate caregiver, and in the book I talk about what you should look for, that you look for rather than looking for a very strict and rigid babysitter, or, you know, if you're going to hire somebody, you really find the most sensitively nurturing, empathic person you can find. You know, we all want someone who's going to organize our house or organize our lives and be competent, what I call competent caregivers. But really what we need in the first 3 years is that the people that are caring for our children when we're not there are sensitively nurturing and very empathic towards your baby, and are the kind of caregivers that pick up your baby when they're crying past the point of their ability to regulate their emotions or their frustration. So that's what I would look for. And in fact, we've never done it alone as women. As you know, Blythe, we've never done it alone. We've always had other women in our lives. In the past, we lived in houses or communities where, our mothers even lived in the house, or the neighbor we called her aunt, and she helped us. And so we've lost that in our society, too. In this devaluing of nurturing, we've also lost the connections to the women that were supporting us in our mothering.
You're so right. And I know most of the families that I've come in contact with here in Arizona, Grandma isn't next door. Grandma lives, the other side of the country.
That's right.
It's a plane trip for Grandma to come. And, it is tough because we don't have that. And I'll tell you what, it's a shame. I hope somehow we get it back, because it always used to be so great to be able to go next door or call somebody and say, can you come over? I need to take a shower, which is another whole discussion about putting your baby down when you take a shower. So we're not going to get into that one. But, it's a shame that we've lost that, because it was always so important.
And now we hire people to replace that role. So, yes, surrogate caregivers, even if I always say the best caregivers, when we're not there, are the ones who support us as mothers. So the caregivers who support the mothers to mother, meaning when the mother is absent because she's at work or out or taking a shower, that they can fill in for her. But when she comes back, that the caregiver can step back and say, this baby only has this one mother, and I may leave at some point. I may not be with this baby forever, but this baby is the baby of this mother, and will be stuck with this mother forever. And so the idea that the caregiver really steps back then and is flexible, so then they encourage the mother to, so I say in my book, more is more. The more emotionally and physically available a mother can be, whether she works or not, is better for the mental health of the baby. So if you have a caregiver who's supporting you as a mother, then you want also them to have the flexibility, so when you come home, they support you to be with the baby. Maybe they do other things in the house. Mm-hmm.
That's so important, and more is more, because we're going to break for commercial in just a few seconds. And when we come back, we're going to talk some more about being there the first 3 years and caregivers. So we will be right back. Stay with us.
We'll be right back with more help. For help, my baby came without instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these.
Year, the United States Postal Service successfully ships over 160 billion packages and letters, with bills traveling through the mail at twice the speed of checks. Automated sorting machines read zip codes and directs the mail to the proper destination. But last year, they failed to read some 2.4 billion pieces of mail, all because of cacography. That's bad handwriting. So what happens to all that errant mail? The post office hires more than 700 postal clerks to decipher the most difficult ones. When a sorting machine discovers an illegible address, it scans and sends a digital image to the clerk's computers. Amazingly, the average clerk can crack the code in just 3 seconds. Not everyone can keep up, though, as management at the post office is always pushing the envelope.
It's Marching Neighborhood.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
What we eat has a big impact on our weight, but when you eat can also make an enormous difference. Women's Health magazine says that eating at the appropriate times throughout the day will help maximize fat burning and reduce hunger. They recommend to eat within 1 hour of rising. Breaking your fast and stabilizing your blood sugar sets you up for good eating habits the rest of the day. Plan to eat every 3 to 4 hours. Timing your meals will improve your fat loss by preventing excess insulin, allowing leptin to do its work on metabolism and appetite control, and balancing cortisol. Lastly, never eat within 3 hours of bedtime. Eating close to bedtime interferes with your sleep, and that increases the likelihood of overeating the next day. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond. Visit our Facebook fan page at Fitness Minute with Annette Hammond.
Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet, the hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions. I am here today with my second guest, Erica Komisar, who wrote Being There, Why Prioritizing Motherhood in the First 3 Years Matters. Everybody should have this book if you're thinking about having a baby. If you have a baby, it is the most interesting book, and it really makes you feel so good about being a mom. And, you know, what you need to do, what you have to try to do if you can. But it really explains everything. Erica, talk a little bit about, you know, you have studies in here about biologically why it's so important for the mom to be there the first 3 years. I mean, it's important all the time, but...
Well, the first 3 years are what we call the critical period of brain development. So by 3 years old, 85% of a child's brain, the right side of their brain is developed. And the right side of the brain is really very important for so many things related to the social, emotional well-being of children. On the right side of the brain, we regulate our emotions. We have our stress resilience, meaning how we cope with difficult things in life. All of our social skills in life, how we interact with others, that we can be intimate with others, and that we can be empathic toward others. So this is all in the right side of the brain. And this part of the brain is what's really developing in the first 3 years. And mothers are a very critical part of that development. So their emotional and physical presence from moment to moment develops the right side of the brain.
That's pretty interesting because I've always said I wish they taught children languages once they start talking instead of waiting till they're in junior high or high school because they're like such sponges.
Yeah.
With the brain development. It's really great.
We have a phenomenon. Oh, no, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, we have a phenomenon going on in this country, which is really interesting, which is also troublesome, which is we promote left brain development or cognitive development very early in our children, and we also promote independence very early in our children. And, you know, if we do that before we promote social emotional development, it's like the way I would describe it is it's like putting your shoes on before your socks. So you always want to put your socks on first. So you want the social emotional development to come before the cognitive development. Otherwise, the things that the children are learning, including language, but, you know, we put flashcards in front of children. We want them to read early. This is a sort of a phenomenon in our country. The problem is that if we push left brain development first, children don't have the frustration tolerance that's developed in the right brain to deal with the frustration of learning. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we have to look at in terms of how we think about children's development.
That's pretty interesting with the left and right brain. You're right, because, you know, we push our kids so much. It's amazing. I mean, my grandson is, I always talk about my grandson, but he's going to be 2. I love being a grandma. He's going to be 2 in May, and he can say his numbers up to 9. And yeah. I watch that, and my daughter is very, very present, you know, all the time. And it's amazing that I'm talking about this because it's amazing what he picks up, and he'll repeat what you say, and then it will come out, you know, another time, and he really does understand it. It amazes me how these kids, you know, if you work with them, and I guess you're present, which is what you're saying, they pick up so much because, you know, let's face it, kindergarten years ago used to be playing. You would go to kindergarten, they had a sliding board in the room. It is not playing anymore.
That's right. That's right. And in losing play, we've lost a great deal in terms of... I agree.
Absolutely, it's a shame. They need to put the toys back in because that is learning. My guest last week, we were talking about that. Everything is learning, and learning is basically their work when they're little to learn. I want to go back to the caregiver a little bit that you talked about. You know, I've always said that you should have a working interview when you have the caregiver there and you're there but you're not in the room and you see what they do. Is there, out of all the things you need to ask the caregiver, do you think there's one important question that you should always ask? You have lots of great ones.
Well, again, I think the most important thing is to observe them, and not just observe them for a day. You know, often people will hire a caregiver and have them come in and try them out for a day. I think you really need to be around for a good 2 weeks to watch, you know, when they're not performing for you, because a caregiver wants to get the job, of course, and they want to do well, and they're going to behave differently in a short period of time than over a long period of time. So even more important than what you ask is observing them over time, being a little bit like wallpaper. So being home but letting the caregiver do their thing with your child, play with them and care for them, and just watching and seeing how they deal with different situations. But if you are going to ask them something in an interview, I would ask them how they feel about dealing with a difficult situation. For instance, if your child is demanding a toy or demanding candy or demanding something to eat, how they would handle that. And that sounds like you're putting them on the spot, but you learn a lot by asking them about difficult situations that come up for you as a mother and how they would handle them, how they would handle discipline issues.
Exactly. You know what? It's like it's such an important job. At any job interview, those questions are really important.
Yeah.
And, you know, you do need to be there. And one of the things that I have always told my mothers that are going to hire a caregiver is, from the beginning, write down what your rules are. Write down, are they allowed to be on the cell phone? Are they allowed to answer your phone? You know, things they can do. And one of the other things I always have parents ask, which they forget, is, do you have any medical issues? Are you allergic to anything? And are you going to go on vacation? If you're hiring a new caregiver, ask in the beginning, do you need time off? You know, don't tell me like next week I'm not coming in.
Yeah.
And plan B. That's another big one. We always need to have plan B. Oh, you know what? I just got another question about a father. You know, you talk about fathers taking on the maternal role. What do you tell a parent that says, Daddy doesn't do things the same way I do? You know, I want my husband, I want Dad to do things the way I tell him to do them. And dads are different.
Dads are different. I say that moms and dads are not interchangeable. They're both critically important to children's development, but they're not exactly the same. And they're not the same from a biological perspective. So if you look at the oxytocin research, oxytocin is what we call the love hormone or the bonding hormone. And we produce more of it when we nurture. And men produce it and women produce it. Women produce more of it. But the more time we spend nurturing our children, the more oxytocin we produce in our own brains and in our children's brains. But interestingly, it has different effects on women and men. So for a mother, it produces the effect of making the mother more sensitively nurturing, meaning a mother will lean into the pain of a child empathically, whereas a father, when he's nurturing and he has a burst of oxytocin in his brain, he becomes more playfully stimulating. He tickles with greater intensity. He throws the baby up in the air more playfully. So the effect of oxytocin on men and women is quite different. And the best example I can use of the difference is, you know, if you go to a playground and you watch when a toddler falls down, a healthy mother will go to the toddler and empathically find out how the toddler's feeling and give the toddler a cuddle, really what I call leaning into pain, sensitive nurturing. A father will go over and he'll say, oh, you're okay. Look, we'll brush it off so you can go back to play, because that's what fathers biologically are meant to do. They're meant to help children to separate and also to promote resilience in children. So there really are differences between men and women. That doesn't mean that if a father stays home as a primary caregiver, he can't learn to do what a mother does. And when people come to see me in my parent guidance practice, the first thing I'll say to a mother and father is, who's going to be the primary caregiver? Because that's the mother, that we're going to work with you to mother that child. But they're not exactly the same.
No, they're not. And you know what? And it's okay. I always say if the diaper's clean and if they're not bleeding, God forbid, and they're not hungry and they're not tired, then they're okay, even if the diaper's on backwards. It's fine as long as they're healthy and they're happy and they're having a great time with Dad, because they are different. And so many times you see fathers go, shake it off. And I'm always the one that wants to run over and go, oh, you know what? Are you okay? So there is that big difference.
There is a difference, and maybe mothers will forgive their husbands more if they understand that there really is a difference, because many times mothers will leave babies with the fathers and expect the fathers to do, as you say, exactly what they do. Maybe if you understand that there really is a difference, and maybe not expect the father of the baby to nurture the baby in exactly the same way, knowing that what he does is also really important. So if we say that mothers are the objects of attachment, meaning they provide children with emotional security through attachment, fathers for thousands of years have helped children to separate from their mothers, calling them away and saying, let's play and let's, come swimming, the water's fine. That's what fathers have always done well. And so, maybe it will help mothers not to be so hard on fathers when they don't do exactly what mothers do.
I hope that answers the question that I just got. But no, don't be so hard. You know what? As long as the baby's happy, it doesn't matter. They may dress them in the wrong things. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Because they are different, and that's how they learn. You know what? That's how they learn. And the relationships are different. So you say that quality time is a myth. We have just a few minutes before the next break. Can you talk about quality time being a myth?
Yes. So quality time, I think, confuses the issue, because what we need really with our children is both quality time and quantity time. And so I think, this idea of quality time was a way to free mothers from feeling guilty when they couldn't spend time with their children. But the issue now, as the pendulum has swung too far, I think, is that we are not spending enough time with our children. And so we really need for our children to be emotionally well. And remember this kind of moment-to-moment emotional regulation that mothers do all day long. You can't do that if you're not there. And so to the best of your ability, I go back to the idea of more is more.
You know what? I have to interrupt you.
Yeah. No,
more is more, and here comes the commercial. Oh, technology. Love it when it works. We'll be right back.
We'll be right back with more Help My Baby Came Without Instructions. It's Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet. We'll be right back right after these.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors, all quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
Let's face it, the holidays can be fattening. Most of us are just trying to not gain weight at this moment in time. But I want to remind you to eat healthy and to eat often. Choose foods that will work for you, like protein, that will keep you satisfied in the short term so you will lose weight in the long term. Eating protein will make you feel fuller longer. It takes your body more time to break down protein and to use it for energy compared to other foods. Being satisfied means you're less likely to reach for junk food or sugar later on. Choose high-quality protein at every meal, like eggs, low-fat cheeses, nuts, grilled chicken, and fish. Keep your blood sugar levels stabilized by eating every few hours. Don't get so hungry that you will eat anything. Keep hunger at bay and watch your body slowly rid those extra pounds. Start the new year off right. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
Welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions with Blythe Lipman on TogiNet, the hour for all moms with little ones to come for great advice, encouragement, and great ideas for all new parents. Now, back to the show with Blythe Lipman.
Well, welcome back to Baby and Toddler Instructions. We are up to the last part of the show with Erica Komisar. She wrote a terrific book called Being There, Why Prioritizing Motherhood in the First 3 Years Matters. And boy, it does matter. So, Erica, before we go on, where can my listeners get your book or contact you?
So the book is launching on April 11th, which is this coming Tuesday, so they can buy it in bookstores on April 11th, and they can also buy it online now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and any of the online bookstores. They all have the book now.
Yay, it's such a great book. So let me ask you, do you have a favorite parenting tip? You have 3 teenagers.
I do, and actually I'm working on my next book, which is about adolescence, because there's a real connection, I call a wormhole, between toddlerhood and adolescence, meaning a lot of the same brain development and brain pruning that happens in toddlerhood happens again in adolescence, so you get a second chance at really
I can't wait till that's out.
Yeah, doing what you may not have been able to do in the first 3 years. And now we know that adolescence isn't from 12 to 19 as it was 50 years ago. It's been redefined to be from 9 to 29. So it's really, you really have another chance to make a difference. And in terms of the parenting tip, I didn't forget the question. One thing I tell parents, if you want to be present, is really when you come home, have a basket near the door that you put all your technology in, your computer, your phone, and really leave it there until your children are asleep. And really make the time that you have with your children the best possible time it can be. You had asked me about, quality time. And what I would say about quality time is that quality time is on your time, not your baby's time. And so that's a problem with quality time, because babies need you when they need you, which may be throughout the day. And when you come home, you're doing it on your time. So again, the more you can be with them, the more you're with them for quality time on their terms. Having said that, you want to make the time that you have with your baby the best time it can be. So that means technology, which is really interrupted, emotional connection and connectedness to other people. Leave it at the door until your children are asleep.
So what do you think, though, when you're spending time with your children and you're using your technology to work with them and teach them something, like with a 3-year-old, you're doing colors or you have an app on, or, this is the way of the world, unfortunately. What do you think of that piece? Is that quality time as long as you're sitting there and actually doing something with them?
Yeah, so the American Pediatric Association has said that you really shouldn't use technology with children in terms of their brain development until they're 2. But that's not realistic, because most of us will pull out our phone or our iPad. And I'm not rigid about it, but what I say is whatever you're doing with your children, you want to be present with them. So you want it to be interactive. So the difference between, people want to villainize television. And television really, if you're doing it with your child and you're sitting and watching Sesame Street or an educational show with your child and you're interacting with them and hugging them and snuggling with them and talking about the show, you're really being with them in a different way. So it's okay if you're interacting, using the technology to interact. But most of the time when we use technology, we're giving it to our children and it in a dissociative way, meaning they're using the technology to check out. So as long as you check in while they're using the technology, technology is not necessarily the villain.
No, and I'm glad you said that, because it is the way of the world. And Another question is, when you have a play date with somebody, how do you stand back and say, you know what, don't let them play on the computer. Don't let them play with your phone. I mean, can you do that when you're on a play date too?
Right. So boundaries are really important. I mean, we know that the word discipline doesn't really mean to punish. It means to provide boundaries, to provide structure, to teach your children. So I think boundaries are really important, particularly for toddlers, and they can't set those boundaries for themselves. So having boundaries around how much technology, when they can use it, as you say, not using it on a play date unless the children are interacting with one another. But yeah, so boundaries is what I would answer to that.
You know, and don't be afraid to ask if you're going to have a play date. Ask the mom if she sits on the floor with them during the play date, or if they play with toys, or, you know, ask what happens at a play date and tell her what you do at your home. Because every home is different, and there may be things you don't like, or there may be things that are great that you never thought of that you can do on your play date. You know, play dates don't mean you just have to put the kids in the playroom and then you leave, or you're in another room, you know, doing the laundry. There's all different ways to do that when they can learn, and there's the quality time too you can spend during the play date. We talk about balance a lot because, you know what, a lot of mothers choose to work or they have to work, and I love in the back of your book you have mindfulness exercises, and I really want you to talk about that before the end of the show because it's so important. A lot of people don't even understand what mindfulness is because we're not taught. We're so busy.
Yeah. I mean, we're busy and we're distracted, and we also want things to move very fast. We've become a very fast world. Fast thinking, fast talking, fast moving. And really being with a baby and a toddler is a very slow, it's got a very slow feeling to it. Meaning when you're sitting on the floor with your baby and watching your baby play, as you said earlier, Blythe, watching a baby play is watching a baby learn. And it's fascinating to watch them pick up a toy because you know with every toy they pick up, their brain cells are exponentially growing. But you have to be in a mode where you're in the moment, happy with the moment, meaning grateful for the moment that you have with your baby, not thinking, what am I cooking for dinner, or what am I doing after this, or shouldn't I be answering my emails for work, or, you know, so mindfulness is really being very much in the moment with your baby and slowing things down. And that's not easy for many mothers today because they themselves were brought up in a culture of fast-moving, fast-talking, fast-thinking. And so, you know, distractibility and focus issues have become a problem of our society.
You know, it is really fast. And the thing is that your child, your toddler, will pick up on it. I mean, I've seen toddlers look at their moms and go, Mommy, you're not listening. Mommy, you're not paying attention. Or as they get older, you'll see them playing, you know, maybe little girls with their dolls, and you'll hear them say the same thing to their dolls that they've said to their mothers because we really are the best role models, and they watch everything we do, and they feel if we're there, and they know. I mean, they know.
They do.
Even a newborn knows. Even a newborn, when you pick up a newborn, they can tell how nervous if you're nervous or if you're tired. You just don't feel right the same way. So tell my listeners one of the mindfulness exercises that they can do.
Well, you know, one of the things that I say to new mothers is, you know, things like yoga and meditation. People think of that as mindfulness, but in fact, you only want to do that with a baby if you're interacting with the baby, if you're making eye contact with the baby. So one of the exercises that I really like is a reflection exercise where mothers just sit on the floor and observe their babies and then reflect back what their babies are doing and feeling. One might call it mimicking, but you know, in fact, if the baby is frowning or making what we call a woe face, you frown and make a woe face. And that's a way to provide empathy. If the baby is smiling, you smile back at the baby. If the baby picks up their hand to look at their hand, because hands are fascinating things if you think about it for a baby, you pick up your hand and you look at your hand and then look back at the baby. So the idea is reflection. So like looking in a mirror and seeing yourself, babies actually learn about themselves from how their mothers reflect them. So when a mother reflects how a baby is feeling and what a baby is doing and the pace that a baby is moving at, the baby then feels recognized. And that's the beginning of the development of self-esteem. So that's a really important mindfulness exercise, sitting on the floor and using reflection to reflect the baby's emotions and their moves and their activity.
You know, I love that. And I have to say, it is important because then you learn. And you learn, and not only that, it's really fun to do a reflection activity like that. So we are up to the end of the show, and I just have to say one more thing about the end of the book. I love this. Before you get out of bed in the morning, give yourself a hug. And you know what? Remind yourself you're your own best friend. And I love that because women, we need to take care of ourselves, and we are our own best friend. And if we don't take care of ourselves first, then everybody doesn't get what they need, but we don't get it first. So I'm sending thank you hugs to you from the back of your book. It's great. Thank you so much for being on this show. And let me know when the next book is out because I would love to have you come back.
Thank you, Blythe. Thank you for having me on.
You take care and have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Wow, you know what? I love learning from my guests each week. I mean, they're wonderful. If you ever want to be a guest on my show, please contact me via TogiNet.com or my website, mybestparentingadvice.com. And I put 2 videos on. So check out Facebook Live, Facebook, Twitter. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on I do Periscopes. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. Also, you know, it's springtime. And my books make great gifts, shower gifts, new parent gifts. Help My Baby Came Without Instructions, More Help, and Help My Toddler Came Without Instructions. My books are all in list form. You just go down the list, pick the tip that you think may work for the situation. That's why I have so many of them. I know every tip works, but it doesn't work all the time for every baby or toddler. That's why I have hundreds of them. And you know what? Everything from when your baby won't stop crying, potty training, bathing, traveling with your little ones, choosing a preschool, anything you can think of those first 4 years. So as always, I believe we should all laugh at least once a day, and parenthood has lots of humorous moments. So here's my humor to end the show today. If you enjoy asking someone to put on their pajamas at least 87 times every night, I can't recommend parenting enough. What do you say? Don't bounce that ball in the house. What your child hears? I'm going to bounce a different ball in the house. And finally, this is the best, and it makes me laugh every time. I told my husband I had to run out to Target, so I was leaving him with the kids. I should only take about 20 minutes. Guess what? He fell for it. I'm going to walk every square foot of the store with a caramel macchiato in my hand and all of my coupons. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Have a great rest of the week, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.